Welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have another Rutgers athlete on the show today, which is phenomenal. Wait till you hear this girl's background. And I did some homework on her and I looked up, some of her accolades and some of them I want to know what it really means. So one of her awards was a Pom Pom Award. We're going to find out what that's all about. She won the Coaches Appreciation Award. She was the most improved gymnast at Rutgers. And for anybody who knows what it's like to be a college gymnast, it's extremely difficult. But here's what I like to say, and I say this every time I bring on an athlete. It's not just about the athletics, it's about the academics. This young woman was all academic Big Ten multiple times, which tells you she's extremely sharp in the classroom. But this is pretty neat. In four different exercises in her gymnastics world, she had a 9.8 plus in four different exercises. Now, to me, I think 12 is a perfect, but I'm sorry, 10. 10 is perfect. And 9.8 in four different things, like that's incredible. But she's from Raytown, Missouri. I think I got that right, by way of Rutgers University gymnastics team, fresh off a knee surgery. Welcome to the show, Kaitlyn Hall.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you, and I have to ask before I start hitting you with a lot of questions. I need to know what is a pom pom award?
A pom pom award is every single practice we would vote for whoever was it could be, most supportive teammate. It could be who had, the best practice. It could be if you just, were really there for a teammate or just had something really stand out for the day. Your teammates would pick or vote on who would get the pom pom for the day.
All
Um,
right.
so yeah, so it was just every day, someone got a pom pom at the end just for, a good practice or being supportive or hitting your goals or whatever it was. So
That's awesome. That's a cool award. So before I ask you a ton of questions, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
okay, so I grew up in Raytown, like you said, in Missouri. I got a full ride to Rutgers. And from there, I competed. I did have a few injuries along the way. But here and there, I had my first surgery in eighth grade on my elbow. And then I had some knee surgeries, like you had mentioned. I did make it, to nationals back in high school. I got fifth at nationals. Had some ups and downs, but then ended up at Rutgers. I loved it there all 4 years. Also battled with some injuries. But then we had some really good years. You mentioned a few things that I did. So yeah, I mean, gymnastics has always been a big part of my life and always will be. So, yeah.
That's great. And you decided to stay right here in New Jersey, right close to Rutgers.
Yes, I did. I met my boyfriend who was on the baseball team at Rutgers. And then I did move after Rutgers. I went to live with my family for a little bit, my mom's side in Boston. We did long distance for a little bit, but now I am back in New Jersey, back where I met him when we were 18. So here we are in Jersey City.
And you're
So,
here to stay.
and we're here, yep, here to stay.
Good. Well, I'm glad you stayed. Glad you stayed. So we're gonna bounce around, throughout your short life so far, you know. And the question I ask a lot of my guests in the beginning is, when did you know? When did you know you had the skill set, the ability to not just be a gymnast, not just to be a gymnast in high school, but to be a gymnast in the collegiate level, and not just in the average collegiate level, but in the Big Ten level. Like that's like big time athletics. When did you realize like you had that ability?
I think maybe, well, in seventh grade, I was homeschooled because I went to practice twice a day. We practiced 3 hours in the morning, 4 hours at night. Very, grueling. And then we homeschooled in between practices. So I think from there, I realized that I was making this big sacrifice of not going to school anymore, not being with my friends. And I was like, wow, and my family had to sacrifice a lot. So I was like, okay, wow, there must be something to this if we're making all these changes and it seems like the real deal. So, yeah.
So homeschooled, what does that actually mean to you? And you said seventh grade?
Yes, seventh grade.
So how do you handle that? Like you said, you're not going to school, you're not seeing your friends, your buddies. How do you handle that? Like I've never done it. You know what I mean? So how do you handle that as a seventh grader, knowing that you're not leaving the house?
Yeah, it was very different. I don't think that my school friends really understood what was happening because they just knew I wasn't in school anymore and it was for a sport and they just didn't get it and I wouldn't either. But it was there was a group of us that did it, so it felt like it was like our little school. We all had different things going on, but we would go to someone's house and we would do our school and that was our new school. And then we would go back to the gym. So it was just like a very new dynamic and it was just very, very different. And we were in the gym just as much as the school. So it was a lot. Yeah.
And then all your friends were on the gymnastics team anyway, right? For the most
Yeah.
part.
So not from school. So school,
Okay.
not a lot. But then yeah. Yeah. That's right.
I mean, the gymnastic team actually becomes your family over time,
Yes, exactly.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
So recruiting is crazy today.
Yes.
I don't know how the young athletes today are dealing with it, especially with the portal, and a lot of schools are just taking kids from other schools versus the high school kids. Can you walk us through your recruiting process? How did you handle that? Was it intense? Was it mind-bending? Or was it easy?
Yeah, so my first round of the recruiting process it was very, very exciting. It was I mentioned I went to nationals and that you get a lot of eyes on you when you go, and I had a few schools that reached out to me or I reached out to them and I went on a few visits, and I am from Missouri and I visited Mizzou and I committed. They offered me and I committed verbally right on the spot. I was super excited to go to Mizzou. I grew up in Missouri. My brother went there at the time. Um, super, super excited. I committed sophomore year, so I was about 15. And then right before senior year, unfortunately, they did pull my scholarship. So I was committed for a while and that was my dream, my goal, that was the path, and they pulled it. So because I changed gyms, I was hurt. They didn't want to take a chance on me. Um, so wasn't meant to be. It was really devastating, but like everyone told me, it was a blessing in disguise. And I finally, well, it was pretty devastating. I refused to go into the gym for a little while. And then Taryn Humphrey, my coach, was the one who was a two-time silver medalist. She's Olympian. She was the one that, because I actually went to visit my family in Boston after, because I was just devastated, didn't know what to do. And she called me and was just like, I'm gonna help you through this. You're a senior, you're not quitting, and we're gonna get you a scholarship. So I went back because it was Taryn, and she just means so much to me, and watching her was unbelievable. So I went back, and it was tough at first, but then we had our first meet, and it was kind of meant to be because I was the only senior, and I got to pick a meet, and I wanted to go to the East Coast, so we went to Baltimore, Maryland, Christmas on the Chesapeake, and there were a few schools there, including Rutgers. So they got their eyes on me. I went on a visit, and everything worked out. Thankfully, because then the meet after that, I tore my ACL for the first time. So it kind of fell into place. They offered me and they knew I had that torn ACL, but they took a chance on me,
Yeah.
and I'm ever so grateful for that. And I stayed all 4 years, and it was just, you know, ups and downs, but overall just a great experience. And so yeah, so it really was a blessing. It was devastating to lose a scholarship, but it led me to, I mean, I'm living in New Jersey now, so.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. How does a 15-year-old make that type of decision? I mean 15-year-olds are worried about what they're wearing to school.
Yeah.
How do you make that type of major decision at that stage of your life?
That's what's really hard, is that I wish I would have waited, and because I had a few schools looking at me, but it was my first offer and I took it, and it seemed like the right thing, but again, I was 15 and it wasn't, and I didn't know that, and I was wrapped up in all the excitement, and so a 15-year-old I don't think knows. And so
Mhm.
that's what makes it hard, because the recruiting process is just, from what I understand, is just getting younger and younger. I don't know fully the rules nowadays, but it's just they look at you when you're that young, and things happen between when you're
Yeah,
15 and 18 and going to college. And
yeah,
so it's just a gamble, and your verbal commitment, is just your verbal commitment.
right.
So it's hard.
Yeah, it's gotta be emotionally draining,
Yes.
without a doubt. So I gotta ask you this. I know we talked about this, I think, a long time ago when I originally met you. But the twisties, can you describe that or really explain what that is? Because obviously we watched Simone Biles and that whole craziness with her, and she came back and became a super champion. What goes on in a gymnast's mind when that's happening?
Yeah, the twisties, they're scary. I had a phase where just a standing back tuck, I would just start twisting, and I would do a half, and I didn't understand. And it's just, gymnastics is so, so mental. And I had to go back to like the basics and just go from there. And so not only is it scary because you don't know where you are in the air, it's frustrating because you can do the skill, and it's just your brain like isn't letting you. So it's frustrating, and like I said, when you don't know where you are in the air, it's pretty scary.
So what causes that? Is that a confidence thing? Is that just a physical thing? Like what causes that?
I don't fully know the answer. I mean, I know, I coached too gymnastics, and a lot of gymnasts get, something mental, whether they don't want to go for the skill, or they get the twisties, or, it's just something.
Yeah.
So I would just say I don't know. I just think it's pretty mental, and gymnastics is very mental. So
Every gymnast goes through it somewhere along the line.
yeah, in some sense, yes, I would say so. Yeah.
Right. So another question, this is probably add to it, and I know we laughed about this the first time I met you, is the balance beam. How the heck do you do that? How the heck do you flip upside down backwards on what it's 4 inches wide?
Yes.
How do you do that? Knowing that that's a rock hard balance beam that you just slipped the wrong like half an inch, you're majorly in trouble.
Yes, yes. And I've missed the 4 inches and hit the beam, and it does not feel good. So it's very, very, I always thought about that. I was like, this is 4 inches, and
Yeah,
look what we're doing right now.
it's
I always
crazy.
thought it was amazing. I mean, yeah, and we were just used to it, but I was always stopped to think, like, this is 4 inches, guys.
Yeah.
It's
I
crazy.
just saw this picture on the internet, because my feeds are all athletes keep feeding in, and it's Simone Biles upside down looking, for the beam.
Yes.
And she's literally completely vertical, upside down. Her legs are going wherever, and her eyes are looking for the beam. And I'm like, it's this big.
Yes.
Like, how the heck do you do that?
I know. I
You
know.
know, that is just nuts. So, Rutgers, you land on campus, and the first thing a lot of people say, new students at Rutgers, is how the heck do you manage the buses, right? How do you manage the buses and getting around? But which is all the students have to deal with that, right? But how do you, as a freshman from the Midwest, show up in right outside of Manhattan in a gigantic school in a very extremely competitive conference? How do you manage that as an 18-year-old kid?
Yeah, wow. It was a culture shock for sure. And I actually went early. I went the summer before freshman year. So I went right after senior year. I went in the summer. They used to have a program called the Bridge program. I don't think they do anymore. But that was a really good program for me to kind of warm up to New Jersey and athletics because it was just, an athletic program where we would take a class and then practice through the summer. But it still was a culture shock. It was like, New Jersey people were different than where I was from, and everything the food was different, and it was
Yep.
just I was so far away, and my dad was like, I just can't believe you're in New Jersey, like this close to New York, like, and so it definitely was just a shock, and but then fall came around and I knew the athletes, but then all the students were there, and it was just like so exciting. And my roommate was a volleyball player, and she was also in the bridge program, so that was a nice trend. I already knew her, it was a nice transition. And what was also nice about freshman years, our upperclassmen would pick us up and drive us to practice.
Oh, that's great.
So that was very, very nice of them. We kept that tradition. I don't know, they probably still do it, but then I was an upperclassman. I drove the freshmen to practice. So yeah, but the buses for classes, yeah, that's always fun.
That's always nuts, right? Where's the bus? So you were there 4 years.
Yes.
Okay. Um, and this is a hard question to answer many times, but what's your most memorable moment in the 4 years of being at Rutgers? Now, it could be as a gymnast or just as a traditional student or a little bit of both.
I think the most memorable moment would be the last meet I competed in at Rutgers. We were at New Hampshire, and it was a quad meet, so it was, against three other teams, and it was a very close meet, and no one thought we would win, and it came down to the last event, and I just remember my coach turning to me and goes, "We won," and I was just like. I had no words. I said, Really?" Because I was so locked into, and we were on beam last, which wasn't, it was not a bad event, but it wasn't our best. So
Mhm.
I was like, okay, we can do it, but I wasn't focused on, the scores. And then she turned to me and said, we did it, we won. And it was just, and then when, they announced it, and then our team came together and our huddle, and it was a really, really special moment. So
And
I
that
was
was your last meet.
it was.
So how emotional was that? One, you win, and two, knowing that it's done.
So what's even more sad is that I didn't know it was my last meet because of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was it was exciting, but it was the excitement of also like it was the end of the season. We had like one more meet before Big Tens and everything,
Hmm.
and so that COVID, ruined that. But that meet was very special, and then the fact that that was my last meet and I didn't know it, at least it was that meet. So.
So when you found out it was over, how did you handle that?
I I didn't know how to handle it. I remember it was Wednesday because our senior night was Friday and or Saturday, but it was that weekend. And then the world shut down. So, you know, my mom stayed home, my brother stayed home, they were gonna come for senior night. Everyone was gonna come for senior night. But then my dad, he decided to still come and we went to the gym for one last time. We went to the rack for one last time where, we were going to compete. And I went around campus with my dad and my boyfriend. And so it was sad, but, I was glad that we did our little last round in the gym.
Last tour.
Last tour, yep. So that was great that I got to do that, but it was just very devastating because, it was going to be Big Tens. Well, I was going to be recognized for senior night, and then um, Big Tens were the next weekend, and I, was looking forward to the banquet and everything, and then it was regionals and the nationals, but I was most likely going to be going to regionals for vault. So for the first time senior year. So, and I couldn't do that. So it was just like I felt like the world was just crumbling down because it was like probably my best year and it ended just like that. And I just, it was just really, really hard. I mean, there's no easy way to say it. It was
Yeah.
just devastating. Yeah.
Now, did they give you another year to come back from that, or no?
Nope.
You think
It did
yes.
not.
That whole how they made those decisions on which kids can get another year and which can't. It was so bizarre.
Yeah, to me, it didn't make much sense, but
Yeah. Well, let's go on a positive track, right? And let's think about, well, how did being a gymnast at Rutgers, those 4 years there, how did that prepare you for life after the sport was over?
yes, it definitely prepared me. I mean, it just gives you the confidence that you need. I mean, I was so nervous going into the real world, especially, how I had to go into the real world after COVID. I was petrified. I was just terrified of it. And then I realized I was like, I spent my whole life doing one of the hardest sports there
Yeah.
is, with all the hours that I spent, with all the discipline, with all the travel. I've met all these different people. I've, been held accountable. I've learned all of these skills in gymnastics. And I'm like, if I just apply those to the real world, we're gonna be okay because I've already done, something that's very, very difficult. So just take that and we'll be okay.
So what do you think you're applying the most now? Is it the discipline? Is it the perseverance? Is it the positive attitude? Is it the physical challenges that like what do you think you're taking the most and adopting now, being that you've been out for a couple years?
I think teamwork also, I use teamwork a lot because, we've always been around teammates and we've always had to work with people and you see that in your careers is that you have to work with people and it's about relationships and different things and then on top of that you bring in the confidence that you remember from being that athlete and then you take that into your career so then it's like you know how to work with people, you're confident with yourself and it shows in your work. So
So what advice can you give to the young girls today? Let's assume your high school from Missouri picks up the phone and says, "Kaitlyn, we want to fly you out here and talk to the girls that are thinking about going to college and being a gymnast." Let's assume you got in front of them. What advice would you give those young girls today, knowing what you know, what it's like to compete at the highest level ever in college athletics? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to, it sounds cheesy, but cherish every moment I mean, I look back and at the good times and I just smile and I just wish I could go back and I just wish that I just appreciated more and kind of stopped to think a little more like, wow, this is what we're doing. You know, we're at Rutgers, we're competing for Rutgers, we're traveling and just kind of stop and think about how cool it is to be where you are. It's going to be hard. There's going to be things that aren't that easy. But then, you know, to that point, you have your team and you have support. And I can't believe how much support Rutgers gave me. Um, so yeah, so but when it's hard, you know, you just have to stick with it. Sometimes it does get very difficult just physically. You know, you have to balance a lot. So it is challenging for sure, but lean on your support too. There's so much support if you want it. So
Good. Well, I have to ask you this, and this is kind of a deep question, and it's nothing we've talked about before, but maybe we did when we spoke on the phone the first time. Is gymnast, from what I see as a bystander who watches everything on TV and listens to the crazy stuff from the Bella, what's the guy's name? Bella Carosi,
uh,
right? And all that craziness, right? And but for gymnasts, it's not just about their athletic ability. A lot of it's about their weight, right? How do the college gymnasts of today handle that body image, that requirement to be so tiny and thin? Like, is that still something that's going on now, or is that a thing of the past?
I think that it's still going on. I don't know to the extent. I hope it's better now. But yeah, I definitely all growing up, it was I was always worried about my weight and, you know, when the coaches would look at me and say, you know, you're just never gonna be, you know, that girl over there, super skinny. That's just not gonna be you. And then, you know, to be told like, well, gymnastics will be easier if you lost some weight, you know, and to be, you know, have to go into a bod pod and have to measure your body fat and for them to make a comment saying, you know, some of your teammates can eat whatever they want and be fine, but that's not you, right?
Mm,
So to hear those comments when I was young and all throughout, you know, it's hard and it's I didn't even realize how hard it was on me until kind of, you know, semi recently where I'm like, wow, it's very unhealthy, very,
yeah.
very unhealthy and
How much did they
really
want you to lose?
they would say if you lost 10 to 15 pounds.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean,
and
you're not a big person,
yeah, right. So
you
it
know,
was,
and to lose 15 pounds, ugh,
yeah. So,
wow. Well, let
yeah,
me ask you this. How does it feel now? You've been out of school for how many years now?
I've been out for, wow, close to five, I
Five,
think,
right? How does it
27.
feel now knowing you don't have to worry about that?
It's, it's nice. It's really nice not having someone always just worried about that. It's freeing.
Yeah. You can eat what you want, work out the way you want, do what you want, and nobody's watching it
Exactly. Yeah.
other than you know,
Yeah.
and you do whatever
Right.
you want to do,
Right.
which is great. So it's got to just be mentally, emotionally, and just freeing,
Yes.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's bounce again around a little bit. You know, let's talk about injuries. You've had your share. Okay. Yeah. How did that set you back? How did you handle the surgeries, the rehabs, the mental side of the injury? Because a lot of people, how hard can it be? You go to rehab, you're done. But how about the mental side? I think that's tougher than any physical side of any injury.
I agree. I agree. So yeah, so with my elbow too, I was in middle school, so it was a little different, right? And but when I was in high school and would have injuries and have to be out, not being able to do gymnastics. It was a lot mentally. It was because I couldn't do anything in the gym, so I wasn't getting better, I wasn't getting stronger, and then I was bored at the gym when I was in high school and my friends were out and hanging out, and I was sitting in the gym doing my rehab, which then you know, I would do my rehab, but then, I couldn't do anything else. And I wanted then to be with my friends, and then it was a snowball of just this negative attitude, and I can't do anything in the gym, I can't hang out with my friends, it was mentally grueling. It was tough.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
Caitlin, and this is where I'm hoping that those that are listening, um, especially those who are non-athletes, I'm going to guess that most of the people who listen to this show are athletic people. But for those that are non-athletes, you know, and we'll use Rutgers, you have the NARPs, right? And there's nothing wrong with them. It doesn't make them bad people, but they don't fully understand the scope of what you went through day by day. So we're talking about weight issues, we're talking about competition issues, we're talking about injury issues, we're talking about mental issues. And then you still got to go to school. You got to be a normal kid. You got to face life, and I don't think that the traditional audience that's out there who sits in the stands and watches really understands what goes on behind the uniform, what goes on behind the show of the meet. That's just really a show for them. It's
Yeah.
entertainment for them.
Hmm.
For you, it's major competition.
Right.
So how did you balance that, knowing that people were looking at you saying, "Oh, she gets everything handed to her. Oh, she gets all these extra benefits. Oh, she gets her school paid for." Can you talk about that? Like, did you have to deal with any of that when you were in school?
I did a little bit. It would come up a little bit in classes here and there, just about the athlete life. And it was frustrating for sure because, it's just a different path. It's like if they knew what I have gone through since I was, 5 years old to get here, I think they would think differently. And if they knew our day to day, I think they would have a different perspective. I mean,
You
we
would
were
hope, right?
up. Yes, you would hope. You would hope. I mean, we were up early with lift, then practice, then we would have to go to the training room and then straight to class. We would have 10 hours of study hall a week, at least, to start as freshmen, and academic advisor meetings and tutors. And so in class, 3-hour classes, we wouldn't get back sometimes until, 8:30 at night, and then have to do it all at 8 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning again. And so and then travel every weekend. It's just like on top of school. So you would hope that they would have a different perspective because the day to day is grueling.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I would just say, you know what, show up and do what you do just for one day
right,
and see if you come back tomorrow.
right.
Most won't.
No.
And what's really cool, especially with social media today, I don't know if you ever did this, but those athletes who say, "Hey, the day in the life of a D1 athlete," and they
Hmm.
show them really getting out of bed, and they show all these different clips of the stuff they do until they go to bed,
Right.
12 hours later or whatever, maybe 18, 15, 18
Yeah.
hours later. And it's crazy,
Yeah. Right.
what they have to do. And I was watching this one, I forget what sport this girl was in the other day, and she's packing all her lunches, and all her snacks and puts in her backpack. And throughout the day, she's taking breaks and eating because she's got to stay,
Yeah. Yeah.
with the nutrition and stuff. And it's just they don't get it,
Right.
which
Right.
is so cool. So let me ask you this: athletics in college. What do you have any examples of when it brought out the best in you? Like you were like, wow, this is great. And when it brought out like the worst in you, like you were like, stay away from her.
I think it brought out the best in me being the captain, my co-captain senior year. I hope I was a, good captain. I liked the role. I liked that year a lot. So I think that brought out the best in me. The worst in me was probably, again, we're going back to the injuries, just when I would get hurt and just be in pain too, not even, major injuries, just in pain. And I think that brought out the worst because I was just, I was then, I don't know, 19, 20, 21. So it was like, we were like the grandmas of the sport, right? Like we were the old ones. I always had to get taped up. I couldn't do anything without being taped up and braced up. Um, so yeah, so I had to push through that for sure.
So that's another thing that you just hit on. Even though we say the word injury, right? It's that you have to go day after day after day in pain, right? And you got
Mhm.
to function every day in that pain, and you carry that. It's not like you say, "Listen, I'm going to take it off and put it over there." You can't. You got to go day and night and go to bed with it and wake up with it for
Mhm.
years.
Yes. Yes.
And now look at you now. You just had a major surgery 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago,
Yeah.
and you're dealing with more pain now, rehab and all that
Yeah.
fun stuff, but you're smiling while you're doing it, and like we said before, well, let me ask you, let everybody hear this. Would you do it again?
Yes.
Okay. Now, and people right now are saying, why? Why the hell would you do that again? You just mentioned all these crazy injuries
Right.
and misery. Why would you do it again?
Just think you learn just so much from it. Injuries can, relate to just hard times in life, because you're gonna have hard times and you gonna have to get through it and figure it out. And I think, since I've had my fair share, now in the real world, I can have, problems and push through them and just like I've had to with the injuries. So.
So, can you explain how it feels after you win?
It's a really great feeling. I mean, it's different. So I think growing up, and then in high school, the team award wasn't that like it was important, but our coaches didn't, it wasn't like our priority, right? It was gymnastics a very individual sport until college. Um so that's it's a great win, but you're competing against your teammates, right? So then in college, when you have, even if it's just a really good meet, right? Even if you lose, but have, a career high on an event, or whatever, like, I think that just is special and it just brings, the team together. And so, I think that is a very different but special feeling. It's very different than when we grew up, and it was just for ourselves for the most part. And then in college, it's as a team. So I think it's more special.
Yeah. And like we were saying before we went live here, um, I compare the euphoric feeling of athletics in college when especially when you're doing well and when you're winning and things are going in the right direction. It's a drug.
Yeah,
It's a drug, and we chase that feeling, and we'll fight through the injuries, we'll fight through the pain, we'll fight through the practices, the 5 a.m. lifts, everything to get to that feeling of euphoria of winning or personally doing your best.
right.
And I say it's like a drug addict. Like you're just chasing that high, and the challenge becomes like for you, 9.8 out of 10. Like how many girls do better than that?
Yeah,
It's
it's
that's pretty for me for as again as a person who sits on the couch and watches,
yeah,
when I see a 9.8 plus, I'm like, that's close to being perfect. Perfect
yeah,
score.
yes.
So when you see that score on the board, how are you feeling?
It's a really good feeling. It's a really good feeling. Especially because, growing up, you might see a few of those scores, but it's usually, you're not seeing 9.7s, 9.8s when you're growing up. So then in college, when you hit a routine and you finally hit that 9.8, it's really cool. It's just like, wow, it's a cool feeling.
Now, what do you have to do to get that high of a score? It's like, does your routine have to be almost flawless?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, 9-8 is just too, tense off, so
Like, what are the judges doing taking those tenths off? Why don't you say, hey, come on, give me those tenths?
I know, right? It was just a small hop. Give me that 10th back.
Is that pretty much what it is? Just a little hop here or a little
Yeah,
wobble there?
yeah, yeah. That's
Oh
all.
my God. Now, do you know that's going on when you're competing, or do you like, oh, they're gonna deduct that?
Yeah,
Oh, you do. So you're feeling that as you're going.
yes, yes.
Ugh. And you're hoping they missed it,
Right, right.
you know? Do they ever miss it?
I don't think so because there's usually either two or four judging you, so
So
judging.
somebody sees it.
Somebody sees it.
They get all those eyes on you. Oh my
Yes,
God.
yes.
Well, let's talk about transitioning out, right? What were your biggest concerns your senior year in college, right? Gymnastics has come to a close. Now you got to transition out of gymnastics into the real world, out of school. What was that like?
I mean, I kind of felt clueless. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Our season wasn't over yet. I My plan was to finish the season, finish my internship with the Rutgers football team. I was going to help with spring ball. But everything just ended. So I had no idea what to do. I moved to Boston and I walked into a Y for a membership and I saw that they had a gymnastics program. So I said, "Oh, wow, do they need any coaches? Because I don't have a job right now." And so they emailed me. I coached part-time for like I think 8 months, and then they made me the gymnastics director. So I was director of the department. So I think if I didn't have gymnastics, I don't know where I would be because, I coached and then that turned into, an admin role where I took on a lot of responsibility and learned a lot from there. So I think that was really great for me. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to coach when I was at Rutgers. I think I needed, I was like, oh, after maybe I'll take a break from gymnastics and then see if I want to coach. But given the way it ended, I think coaching and being a part of these kids' lives, I think that was kind of my gymnastics closure
Yep.
because I didn't get it at Rutgers. So I think I don't coach anymore, but I think that was definitely like my closure. I gave back to the sport and I yeah, I think that was good for me.
All right. So how did you avoid? Well, let me ask you this a different question. How did you balance? You're all academic. How the heck do you balance that? How do you get to those kind of grades? Dealing with your injuries, dealing with your sport, dealing with everything you got to do. How come you're not just squeaking by and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm passing. I'm good." What motivates you to balance that to get to that level of your academics as well?
I think, like I said, we had a lot of support. Our academic advisor, we met with once a week, and, she pulled up all of our grades, all of our assignments. She was very involved, which was good. And we all had good relationship with her. So I think she pushed us in a good way. I think our coaches, pushed us when we had to travel we would all be doing our assignments on the bus, on the plane, and so it was better that we had a team that we were, also doing it with. And we had a lot of tutors. I mean, if we needed a tutor for a class, we could, ask for one and we could work with them and, so like I said, there was just a lot of help and I took a lot of help. I had a lot of tutors, a lot of study hall. So yeah. So It was great.
Who do you think was the most helpful? Was it the tutors? Was it the coaches? Was it family? Like who do you think was your guiding light through all of this?
With the grades, I think I just didn't want to let my coaches down, and I didn't want to, have not be able to compete or anything because of my grades. I never wanted that. So I always made sure I was at least on top of things. So
So this is probably a hard question, but an easy one to answer. Most kids, because you're kids, even though you're adults, but you go to college, you're 18.
right.
Sometimes you're 17, and some of them stay until they're 27. But with all that balancing, how do you not burn out? How do you avoid not just burning out and saying enough's enough?
Yeah, that's also tough. Because it's a hard schedule and you are moving, moving, moving. Um, but like I said, when you have a team that's also doing, similar things, and you also have, your class that are usually taking the same classes or, similar classes to you, and having upperclassmen like help you. I think just the team aspect of it really, really helps.
That's good. So how many girls are on the team?
When I was on, there was around 20.
Now, is that a big team? I don't even know. Is that like
That's
a
a
lot of girls?
pretty big team.
Do
Yeah.
they all travel?
No, I believe 15 were able to travel.
So most of them do.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to get into some fun stuff.
Yes.
So talk about the plane rides, the bus rides, the hotel stays. Can you explain what that's like?
It's so fun. That was one of my favorite parts of college, I think, was just traveling with the team. I mean, we all, wore the same thing, so we would go to the airport and everyone would look at us and, because we
Like
looked
celebrities.
legit. You're right. Like I really felt like a celebrity. And um yeah, everyone would look over, and then just the hotels, and we would get our roommate and everyone would be excited, and um we would plan different things. We would plan like a team bonding thing, in the hotel room one night, and um yeah, the whole and like getting ready, we would have, two people doing hair, and everyone getting ready at the same time, playing music, and we had our pre-meet things that we did, and it was really, really fun. Really. And like I said, I wish I kind of appreciated it a little more at the time because it
Yeah.
was special.
Goes so quick, right?
It goes so quick.
But when you're in the middle of it, like, let's take it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you just talked about doing the hair and stuff. When I was back in school, and now this is no disrespect to any of the girls that were athletes in my school, I never remember the makeup, the hair, the eyelashes. Like, what's that? When did that start? Like, it's like now it seems like all of college athletics on the girls' side, they walk out like models.
Yeah, yeah, I don't really know when that did. I mean, I think um in, growing up, or at least I had to, always have, either a bun or a slick back, ponytail or whatever. So it was pretty strict. And then when we got to college, we were able to, have braids in, and we were able to like, have a little bit more fun. So I think that's where most of it comes from. I think a lot of gyms were kind of strict about, I don't know about anymore. But yeah, growing up, I had to have, very clean hair, and then in college, you were able to have a little fun and have bows and
Yeah.
things.
So
Yeah.
everybody had their own little identity,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So speaking of identity, nice little transition here. You know, how did the identity of an athlete, because that's who you were, right? But it ended. How did that help you transition into life now to create a new identity?
Yeah. That was definitely hard for me too. just to kind of be like, oh, I'm not, the gymnast anymore. Like, so that was hard because I always identified, when I would meet people, they would say, oh, you're the gymnast, right? So that was always the first thing people would say. So then after, I was like, what am I? Like, what am I gonna be? What am I gonna do? So that was kind of an identity crisis, if you will. So, but then, I thought about, all right, this is what made me, being a gymnast, what did that make me, right? And how can I take that to the real world? So I think taking, values and the traits even though I'm not the gymnast, I'll take what gymnastics gave me to help me in the real world. So, yeah,
Well, you're leading right into my next question. When you say values, right?
yes.
What values did you take with you that you're using today?
I think, I mean, like I think I keep saying, the value of teamwork and relationships just because you will see that, how many team meetings at work do you have? Like everyone, you're on a team and so just valuing relationships and valuing, you know, you don't get along with everyone you come in contact with, but you have to learn how to work with it, work with different kinds of people. So I think Rutgers, really helped me with that. I mean, you meet all kinds of people and you travel and you meet all kinds of people. And so I think that's definitely a big value for me to kind of just know how to work with all kinds of people and because I see, different kinds of people in my everyday life. So I think just knowing how to deal with that and yeah.
Okay. So when you were at your last semester of school, were you even thinking about your career path? If so, what were you thinking about doing, and what was the ultimate vision at that point?
If I'm honest, I really did not know, and it was pretty stressful for me because I didn't know. And, I feel like a lot of other people had a direction. I did have an internship, so I figured maybe that would go somewhere in, the sports world because it was with the Rutgers football team, so I figured maybe that would be my path. But then, COVID, so I did find, I was working in the gymnastics world, so I did, find a sports world. So I guess I was on that path still, but I didn't know that. I walked into the Y for a membership and I got a job and then I was the director. So it was kind of meant to be. I wasn't seeking it out. It just, yeah.
It's
So
almost like what happened with Missouri.
yes, it is.
It's almost the same type of, well, you had no plan, but it turned into a good plan,
Yes, exactly.
right? Which is neat. So what advice would you give to the girls now? We talked about girls coming into college, right?
Right.
So now, what advice would you give to the any athlete, men or women, coming out of school now to prepare for that next phase of their lives, knowing that you've gone through it, you've transitioned out. It wasn't easy.
Right.
What advice can you give them to make their transition a little bit easier?
I think definitely don't stress because you're going to find something. I think I really was just way too stressed about the whole thing and it was not good, but you are going to find something. So just don't stress about it. It's going to work out and you'll know the right path for you at the time. So don't get discouraged and don't stress too much because you're going to be okay.
Okay. Are there any resources that the athletes should look for with regards to that transitioning out? Is there like things that the school provided to you? Maybe are there people outside of school that they should hunt down to kind of get some advice and thoughts about the next step?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely I think I would have, seen that a little more if I got to finish my senior year, but we had, networking events and everything. So you can definitely, where alumni would come back and talk about what they're doing. So you can definitely use, those things as a resource. You can go to Night of Networking and kind of just talk to a lot of people and hear what a lot of different former athletes are doing because if they're succeeding at something, maybe you want to too. So I would definitely, or even reaching out to former athletes that were at your school and what are you doing? What do you like about it? How has it helped you? How has being, at Rutgers helped with that? And so you can kind of just talk to all kinds of people and what they're doing and what you might want to do.
Good. It's good advice. So you're out of school now a number of years, going on 5, right?
Yep.
It's not that long of a time, even though in your mind, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm out of school 5 years already.
Yep.
You have so much in front of you versus what's behind you, right?
Yep.
But what do you think you're most proud of so far since you've gotten out of school?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think just moving to New Jersey and starting, this life with my boyfriend, and I had to move here. I had a job lined up, but I had to move here. I had to work for that job. I have a few friends that are still here from Rutgers, but didn't have a lot of people around, and I was leaving my family um, to be here. And I think just being like from Missouri and now, being in New Jersey and working in New York City. And I just never thought that I would be here and brave enough to kind of move to the East Coast, stay in the East Coast, you know, work in New York City, which is just like a ton of people. It's just totally different than how I grew up. So I think just being here and just the life that I'm living is not what I expected, but I love it. So I think that's just, yeah, I think it was kind of brave of me. And yeah,
Right. So what's the future look like? Like if you could fast forward 4 or 5 years from now, what's going on?
I think, 4 or 5 years, I definitely want a family. I don't know where we want to live, but I definitely want to have a family and, um, see where our lives are. I mean, that's kind of my only clear-cut goal for that, 4 or 5 years. So
It's hard to figure that out, right?
it is, it is.
You know,
Yeah,
it's you have so many moving parts,
yeah,
and like which one do you start with first?
right.
Who knows, but just like coming out of high school, it worked out.
Yeah,
And just like coming out of college, it worked out.
yes,
So your next phase of life, wherever that takes you, history tends to repeat itself,
right,
right?
right.
It'll just work out.
Yeah.
So Caitlin, is there anything we haven't talked about or touched on that you think we should hit before we wrap it up?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, we covered a lot, right?
Yeah, we did.
And again, the life of a gymnast, and I hope for those who listen and now when they watch the TV,
Hmm.
and they see what's going on the TV screen when to them it's entertainment. I hope this conversation that we're having, where you're able to talk about the things that go on behind the scenes that the athletes deal with, I'm hoping that the spectators who have never had to persevere through what you had to persevere through appreciate what they're seeing on TV that much more,
Right,
and that's what this is all about, is they get to the world out there to really understand and appreciate what the life of a college athlete or professional athlete is like.
right.
Because you and I know it is not easy, you know, but we do it again,
We do it again.
you know.
Yeah.
So Caitlin, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to your continued success and all the venues of your life, and hope to have you back on again.
Of course. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.